In today's video, we have another NHL player on the waiver wire who could be claimed. We also have some trade rumors taking a look at the Buffalo Sabres. Could they be in the market for another starting goaltender? And are the Colorado Avalanche done? Might we see another deal from that team as well? We'll jump into all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of things to talk about here today. Let's get started with the news from the NHL waiver wire. The Dallas Stars have placed young defenseman Julius Honka on waivers. They're likely going to assign him to their taxi squad or American Hockey League team, assuming he clears. But I do think there's a decent chance, at least, that another team grabs this player and gives him a fresh start and a new opportunity. Of course, Julius Honka was one of the players who was an RFA last year and remained unsigned and sat out the entire season from the NHL. He ended up playing over in Europe, where he's played last year and the start of this year while he was waiting for the NHL season to get underway. He's now 25 years old, doesn't have a ton of NHL experience under his belt, and has very limited opportunity since being drafted by the Dallas Stars. Now, of course, he very well could still be a useful NHL defenseman. Of course, he did finally re-sign and come to camp this year. The Dallas Stars, at this point, though, find that he's not good enough to be in their top 6 or 7 to remain on the NHL roster, which isn't a huge surprise. They do have a pretty decent and deep blue line there, led by Miro Heiskanen, John Klingberg, Esa Lindell, and others. So, Honka is going to be looking for a chance here, and I can see a team that would be less deep on the blue line might be willing to give this guy a fresh start. He's only on a 1-year contract, not a big commitment, but it could be a great opportunity to grab a potential steal here and get him on your NHL roster and give him an opportunity to see if he can be an everyday serviceable player at that level. So it would not be surprising if he's claimed, and we'll have to wait and find out at noon Eastern time tomorrow if that indeed does happen or not. Now, we're looking at a couple of different trade rumors today. One that would be linked to the previous deal we saw with the Colorado Avalanche and Minnesota Wild swapping defensemen that we just recently talked about here, with Ian Cole and Greg Pattern being swapped 1-for-1 the other day. Now, of course, as I mentioned in that video, I couldn't help but wonder if maybe the Avalanche might not be done and might actually be setting up additional moves to come here in the short term. And now there's already rumblings to the rumor mill that might indeed actually be the case. There's a speculation that the Avalanche might actually be interested in moving another defenseman as well. And the next defenseman that very well could be moved would be a combination of either Erik Johnson or Samuel Girard. Now, obviously between the two, I think it's pretty fair to say that Girard's value would be much higher than Johnson's. Johnson's also going to be more difficult to move given the fact that he has a no-move clause. I mean, that's not going to be easy. If he doesn't want to work with them and leave, then he doesn't have to. And I would say more than likely, being on a pretty good team, a couple of years left, everything going on in the world and in the NHL, I would think he's probably going to want to stay put, but that's just my gut instinct on that. So to me, trading Erik Johnson, probably not going to happen. They're also going to have to protect him in the expansion draft as well, since he has a no-move unless he agrees to waive for that, which again, highly doubtful. So Samuel Girard is one of the few defensemen that's actually signed to a pretty long-term contract at $5 million per year. Of course, another pretty young stud defenseman on that roster, along with Cale Makar. You get Devon Toews, who they just acquired. They have some other young guys coming up as well that are going to be looking for more opportunity, like Bo Byram and Connor Timmins. And obviously this team is also looking to upgrade other areas of the team. So now the latest speculation is that the Colorado Avalanche would like to move out a defenseman and possibly get themselves another goaltender. Now, of course, there is talk here that even though Philip Grubauer has had a really good start to the season, that they would still like to have an upgrade in goal before they get to the playoffs. And we may see them try to make a move similar to what we saw the Vegas Golden Knights do last year by acquiring Robin Lehner in a little bit of a surprise trade at the NHL trade deadline. Except I'm not sure this is going to be a surprise, and I'm not sure that it's going to be done at the deadline. I think if they're going to do it, then more than likely it happens sooner than later. Now, given the Avalanche's cap space and where everything is at, there's enough goaltenders on the market that could very well meet what they're looking for. And if they trade a defenseman as part of a package to include a goaltender coming back, then theoretically from a cap perspective, it shouldn't be too difficult to do from the financial side of things. But I guess they're going to have to tread carefully here, because obviously trading a guy like Samuel Girard, who's a really, in my opinion, a pretty solid, dynamic young defenseman. They want to be careful here, and if they're getting a goaltender in return, they're going to want to get themselves a stud goaltender who can be the guy for an extended time, would be my best bet on that. Now, of course, there is a number of goaltenders that they're rumored to be looking at, and a couple of them that are included with that would be Joonas Korpisalo of the Columbus Blue Jackets, David Rittich with the Calgary Flames, and even to a degree, Marc Andre Fleury of Vegas, but I don't think the Fleury scenario, to me, doesn't seem to be quite as likely. I think, like I said, they're going to want somebody that's a little younger who can be the goalie and the main guy for an extended time. Now, it's a little bit, the timing here is a little surprising, in my opinion, given the fact that, like I said, Grubauer has had a really solid start to the year. His numbers are pretty solid. Francouz hasn't really had a whole lot of an opportunity to see the ice yet, so they're obviously not going to carry three goaltenders. Depending on who they did trade with, if a deal went down, they obviously would want to move out a goalie. They're not going to carry Grubauer, Francouz, and plus the goalie they're acquiring all at the same time here. I would think Grubauer would have to be moved out if indeed they did make a deal. Now, of course, I think their concerns might be getting into the playoffs with Grubauer, even though he really hasn't been bad. It just seems like the speculation around this Avalanche team really for about a year now is that they really want to solidify themselves with a more of a stud goaltender to be ready for a deeper playoff run to get them to the Stanley Cup, because we know they have a lot of the other great pieces in line here, and they're one of the teams that are favored to be one of the most likely to win this year, and likely will be in that category for years to come, given all the solid young talent that they've developed there over the last number of years. So obviously the Avalanche are in a situation where they do have options. They have some, pretty good players that have some value that might be interested in moving out, like a Grubauer, for the fact that he's playing well, even though the management might not see him as being the goalie of the future. That still gives him some value. He doesn't have a lot of term left on his contract, which is also helpful. And then a guy like Girard, if he is the guy that were to be moved, then clearly that would be a valuable player as well, that they could bring back something substantial as well. That's why I really don't think Fleury's name is really one to be looking for in that regard, although we are going to talk about Fleury a little bit further in our next segment here, but I don't see that making sense to me. Fleury was linked to the Avs previously, like before, but this was like about a year or more ago, before he got to Vegas. They were one of the teams rumored to be interested in trying to get Pittsburgh to do a trade with them before he went in the expansion draft. I know it's a player that Sankic's looked at, but I just don't see where he's at with his contract and his career, everything. They're going to want somebody a little younger. The way Joonas Korpisalo played in the playoffs last year, to me, he would be a prime target, and we know Columbus is going to want some more scoring, so maybe that could be a match, but at the same time, they'd have to give up something probably out of the forward group that the Blue Jackets would be quite fond of, because as much as they would probably be interested in Samuel Girard, they also have Werenski and Jones that eat up a lot of minutes. They might not be so focused on that back end as they would be up front, and I'm not sure the Avalanche are going to want to part with anything too significant in that way. So as much as Korpisalo would likely be a great fit for the Avalanche, I'm not really sure that there would be an overall terrific fit in that regard, because if they trade Korpisalo, they're going to want a really solid top six forward, I would think, coming back the other way. And when it comes to David Rittich, again, I'm not sure that he's the right guy for this approach either. Good goaltender, yes, but nobody who's really had any experience in the playoffs. So why he would be targeted over a guy like Grubauer, to me, doesn't really make a lot of sense. If the Avalanche are going to go out and they're going to upgrade goaltending, then you might as well go to something that's a little bit more established and somebody who's gotten it done before, at least had a deeper playoff run than what we've seen with Rittich. We haven't seen him really, him and the Flames haven't had any playoff success recently that he's been a part of this team. So to me, that just would not make sense at all. But Korpisalo, maybe. Fleury, I know, makes sense from the experience standpoint, but just don't see that happening. But either way, the fact of the matter is that the rumor has it that the Avalanche may be looking to trade another defenseman. It may or may not happen as quickly as the last one came together, but either way, if they do, they're likely looking to upgrade goaltending before they get to the playoffs if this type of move ends up going down. Now, we're also going to look at another team, the Sabres, also looking at goaltending options. They're a team that's been rumored to be considering a goaltending move really ever since training camps get underway, and now is the time more than ever that they are going to have to look at this. They have a tandem of Carter Hutton and Linus Ullmark, and really neither one of them has really played well enough to be a solid number one in Buffalo, and now Hutton likely is going to be out after last night. Looks like he's going to be injured for some time. So there has been talk that the Sabres would like to acquire a solid starting goaltender, and they've actually been linked to Marc Andre Fleury more so than the other teams that have been looking at goaltending options. Now, of course, that's been reported by Boston Hockey Now reporter Jimmy Murphy, and I know some people out there are a little skeptical on Murphy's sources, but you know what? They were pretty accurate on a lot of things this offseason, so I'm going to give them some credit. And at the same time, we'll see how things play out. I don't think Fleury's the only goaltender they're looking at. Obviously, Vegas would have to retain some salary. I know the Sabres, again, would have some moving parts here that they would want to be included either in this or in a side deal. One of their goaltenders would likely have to go, so I don't know if Vegas is going to want that. Maybe they would take Ullmark as a backup, and obviously that might be a possibility. I don't see them wanting Hutton. Ullmark, maybe. Obviously, Ullmark and Leonard know each other from their Buffalo days, so that maybe that could work out. I don't know. I know they'd like to move a defenseman. Either Ristolainen or Montour is very likely to be traded before the end of the season. Obviously, a goaltending coming back would be extremely helpful based on what they need as a team. So clearly the Sabres are a team to watch here, and I think given the actions of last night, that I think that something could end up happening a little bit sooner. I know checking around before yesterday, it seemed like the Sabres were still interested in this, but weren't as much in a hurry. But I think things could change here. They might see an opportunity now, especially with Taylor Hall being in the mix and wanting to make Jack Eichel happy and take advantage of the season in the unique format and the unique divisions. They probably see an opportunity where they think they can be a playoff team if all goes right. And obviously they need solid goaltending to do that. If they can't get it, then it doesn't matter how good the rest of the team plays. It's just likely not going to happen. So obviously, like I said, the main rumor is right now that they're interested in Fleury. They would want Vegas in return to retain some salary, and apparently they're offering a package of younger picks and prospects to make that happen going the other way. Like I said, there's some other moving parts I know the Sabres would want to do, but they may not be able to do that, at least right away with Vegas. They might have to have another team involved in some capacity. So if this kind of deal does kind of stall a little bit, it could be a case of Buffalo maybe making some other moves. If we do see a case of the Sabres making some other smaller trades with kind of creating some space, then that's what they're likely working on to kind of lead to the bigger move to getting themselves a goaltender. It may or may not be Fleury. Obviously, he has some control over that as well, but it's still a situation that's worth monitoring and watching. And if it's not Fleury, it's likely going to be somebody else. They need goaltending there in the worst way, and I do think that they're going to be aggressive to kind of make that happen, given where things are at this season and their opportunity to really impress Jack Eichel to make sure that things get better before they get worse in Buffalo. So let me know what your thoughts are on these potential goaltending swaps and trades that we might be seeing here in the near future, and we can discuss further down in the comment section. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.